Gloat.
Gloat.
And my last question is the line that everyone's going to remember tonight is him gloating about the 2 election wins he's.
I'm a little bit bored with the American dream of wanting to be rich or being rich and gloating about it publicly, even on a campaign trail.
To have to deal with NVIDIA gloating about being basically the most important chip maker in the world if it went through.
Result of a brain bleed. You sick, quote, journalists and other hacks gloating about this should be ashamed. As for the rest, please pray for Andrew.
There's a little gloating. There's a little gloating in Memphis because, you know...
Iowa Republicans, I mean, they may be gloating, but they can't gloat too much because they aren't completely unified either within that party. There's some strains there.
Published its last print issue. Yeah. Time magazine might be gloating, but they really shouldn't because Time will outlive Newsweek the way Juliet outlived Romeo.
About the millions of people that had died because of him, because of his work.
So instead of gloating or really, you know, running away with that feeling like he normally would, he just paused and he's like, I'm just going to observe it. And he did. He observed.
Conjecture.
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 But it's a video about the Collat's conjecture. So
this is a lot of conjecture, but it's food for thought.
So he really pushed us when I was first doing this to try to state a conjecture and then prove a theorem.
On my part, so don't take what is mostly conjecture on my part, so don't take what I say as fact, but
now gone from being a wild-eyed conjecture to being an everyday working tool of physics.
After I can prove their hypothesis, and my conjecture is this: it doesn't matter. I'm sorry for all the scientists in the room. It doesn't matter why they happen, it matters that they do.
Have the balancing. Now, I'm going to leave you with some conjecture.
My conjecture is everything.
We can't just look at anecdote and conjecture. We also have to look at the science of why monogamish relationships might be the panacea we seek in response to this epidemic of the failing monogamous marriage.
Meaning, if it's falsifiable, then it's a scientific conjecture.
Purely conjecture that's not
Confrontational.
Confrontational.
So absentee, confrontational, combative, not present.
Very confrontational person, but I'm not a very confrontational person.
Construction can be confrontational or it can be collaborative, and definitely the process that I foster is a collaborative one. And that's
sometimes it's confrontational. Someone's, well, how do you expect me to memorize this in 2 days? I say, well, you write it on your hand, you write it on your mirror, and you put it on a tape recorder, okay? You memorize this. And if you can't memorize it, I'm gonna get you a tutor to help you memorize this. And
constantly confrontational with somebody when you shouldn't be.
They had to dump him and go with the second most confrontational.
Being direct does not mean you have to be nasty or confrontational. It's all about communicating with tact. And yes,
adopting instead a confrontational posture.
Reproducible.
Reproducible.
By their ML workflows so that they're easily composable, shareable, and reproducible.
It may be true that if you can get an extract with a reproducible chemical profile.
Was reproducible.
Inexpensive and easily reproducible, and her work was widely circulated and admired.
All I'm saying is that science is limited by looking at what is testable, reproducible, and falsifiable.
For providing reproducible grades.
Your activities in a consistent, reproducible.
So sometimes the results are not reproducible.
But first, let's answer the question what exactly it means for the notebook to be fully reproducible. Effectively, it doesn't mean much. It's only several items. First of all, your notebook needs to have notion about the environment that was used to create that notebook.
Empiricism.
Empiricism.
Empirical.
Empirical.
Empirical arguments for why empiricism is correct. Clear-eyed empiricism to our own lives and our own choices and our own actions.
Today, we have learned about empiricism as a response to skepticism. We talked about John Locke and his...
So I was raised on a diet of empiricism, rationalism, and reason.
The idea of bringing empiricism to some aspects of literary study.
Theory to practice, east to west, empiricism to experience,
with reading an empirical study.
So because of the empirical evidence I studied, so I found the founder, one of them was a professor.
Empirical identification of two
animals, and animals operate based on their empirical senses.
The latest empirical research, real science, which correctly describes human beings as highly cooperative.
Fair.
Fair. Montenegro have fared much better on their own, while others like Kosovo continue to struggle.
We didn't learn how women fared, and these studies could not contribute one iota to the very, very important question.
Can you explain what workfare is and how has it fared since it's been in effect?
We can see how we've fared across a number of dimensions.
Beyond our capacity to imagine how the world would have fared if they, the Jews, had never emerged.
What's your take on how K through 12 fared?
How do you think video has fared on Instagram as a platform? I mean, we were talking about this a little bit in terms of why hasn't it become sort of as successful as sort of the photo?
Yeah. Job growth. Here to tell us how Arizona fared in the research is ASU economist
Iota. These studies could not contribute one iota to the very, very important question.
As I said earlier, an iota of stress.
The amount of hyper-processed food would not decline one iota, and our diets wouldn't change.
Did you say, what did you say? Has it changed my opinion? Not one iota. No.
Well, I think if there's one iota of
a loving relationship, I think it's something that also loves you right back. And that cheese does not love you back. Cheese does not love you back. Not one iota.
Distance to these countries after hurricanes Eta and Iota. So in that sense, it's part.
Very clear. Our concern has not diminished an iota.
None of that enters your mind. It's not. You're not.
None of it. Not a single iota.
Didn't directly compromise AES one iota. Now, I know what you're thinking.